All right, everybody.
Cool.
We got a special interview today with Mr. Kyle Ward. He is running for 4th District, Knox County County Commissioner. That would be my personal one. That's also AC's. But you guys probably forgot who AC is since he hasn't been here in a couple weeks. We'll get started with a little biography of Mr. Ward. I did a little bit of research, but I'll let him tell his own story so I don't screw it up as bad.
Oh, thank you. My name's Kyle Ward, running for County Commissioner for District 4. And you just want to give me my background history, I guess?
Yeah.
A little intro?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
What you would do on a standard...
On a standard day?
Yeah.
I have a military background, was a member of the Joint Special Operations community, and did military intelligence. My specialty was human intelligence. So I was the guy in Afghanistan that was interrogating terrorists and things of that nature, and ran an interrogation cell downrange, and came back home. Met the woman of my dreams, and we got married, and she's from Knoxville, so moved down here to Knoxville to be with her. And about 5 years ago now, started my own company, which is Ward Waste Solutions. We're a residential, primarily garbage company and recycling company, so we service about 3,000 houses a week. And then also I own Waste Masters, which is another garbage company that services Ward Waste does west and south, and Waste Masters will do east and north of Knoxville. And
So that's your neighborhood, Max.
And then
Hey,
so
cool.
yeah, that's the new one. We're just launching next week, so we're getting everything prepped this week, and it'll launch next week. And then also do a lot of consulting on the side. And we have a real estate portfolio that we also manage here in
Nice.
Knoxville as well. So
Cool.
a little bit of
What
everything.
branch?
Say again?
What branch?
United States Air Force.
Air Force. Okay.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
first 2 years was at Langley, and then my last 2 years I was at Fort Bragg, where's JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command, is out of.
Awesome. I got a friend that does intelligence in the Air Force.
Right, Max.
Here in Knoxville.
Max is a Marine, and because you can't say was a Marine, I always
No,
mess that.
always
I
a
always
Marine.
mess that up.
Always a Marine. Yep.
And so he's voiced a few opinions on the Air Force in the past. So
The Chair Force, is that one? I've heard them all. Yeah.
We'll leave those in the past. So last week on our main show, or 2 weeks ago rather, Max and his brother kind of sat in with us, and we were talking about like what kind of factors, what kind of history, what kind of resume you want to have as out of our public officials. And so we got into a long discussion about like the divesting of assets and stuff like that, and everybody's mad at Trump for his lack thereof. And obviously on county commissioner, it's not quite as big a deal. But at this point in the process, is there somebody in county that kind of walks you through how this is going to go after you win, or is that something that once you win you got to figure out, or just because it's county commission, it's so low level nobody cares?
In what aspect of like?
Well, because like one of the things like Trump is supposed to have, he's not supposed to be messing with this.
So yeah, we sign paperwork when you file to run.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any interests that are like what interests you have, basically like what do you own, and is any of it affected by government? So like for me, I own Ward Waste Solutions. So in theory, I could bid on the city contract for garbage disposal,
right,
or the county contract. So in that sense, if any of that ever comes to vote, I would have to excuse myself from that vote.
Okay.
So I have already stated like where.
Okay. Because like one of the things we joke about a lot is Max at least argues that he's never taken a civics class. I argue that he doesn't remember it. I don't remember a lot.
I don't remember a lot
and
either.
So we're joking about doing like a series of shows where we actually go through and do civics lessons, mostly for our own benefit more than the audience's sake. But that's one of the things we try to figure out. So so how does it get started? Like, where do you go from I'm running 2 companies with a solid a real estate portfolio to I'm going to be county commissioner? Both the reasoning behind it and like the actual steps in the process of going to the county, doing the paperwork kind of thing.
Sure. And it wasn't a it's hard for me to really explain. So I mean, maybe Max has a little bit
Your
of
wife
experience.
made you do it? Is that what you're saying?
No, my wife definitely did not make me do this one. Maybe Max will understand this a little bit. So when I was in the military, got to be downrange and served in Afghanistan, and I'm fortunate to see a friend of mine die and right in front of me, and that had a huge impact on me as a person. And I thought I was I was young. I was 25, 26. I thought I was invincible still. When you're in the military, a lot of guys, we're badasses. That's the mentality you have, and you don't think that you can catch a bullet until you do or somebody else does. So that shield of invincibility fell fairly quickly for me, and I always have the image of carrying the casket onto the plane to leave Afghanistan in my head. So my whole philosophy in life kind of changed after that, where it was I have to do everything that I can to honor the sacrifices that those guys made.
Okay.
Is kind of like my mentality now.
Okay.
So like I'm chasing the American dream to show that the American dream is still there, and to like honor the guys that gave me the opportunity to still chase that dream. So like we're such a fortunate country that we have so many freedoms and so many abilities, where I literally came out of the military with, barely $1 to my name, to now owning several companies. I'll have 10 employees by the end of the month. Like I don't have to just think about my family. I actually have to think about 10 families, because they all work for me, and I'm responsible for their financial security. And now we go from the 10 families to 55,000 people. Right. And then 500,000 people you're voting on, stuff that influences them. So for me, if I win, I'll be the youngest commissioner, the youngest elected official in the county. And
how old are you, by the way, real quick?
I'm 34.
34, okay.
Yeah, so a lot of it is me honoring what those guys did by not squandering the freedom that I have.
Okay.
Because I feel like a lot of people don't do they don't try their hardest. They don't achieve what they're capable of achieving. They just settle for mediocre. And I've never been a guy that wants to settle for mediocre. I want to always push the boundaries and kind of, to show. But like, the other part of this is I want to be the example for my generation going forward, and for the younger people. Because when I decided to run, there's a lot of people that told me, like, wait your turn. You're too young. You're too inexperienced. You don't know. And I was like, that's BS in my book.
Because I was doing some research trying to get ready for this, and I'm blanking out on the current commissioner's name, Hugh
Nystrom's the current county commissioner.
And then he basically, like, on the Republican side, he basically kind of picked his successor.
Yes.
And it wasn't you.
No.
And in the primary, I mean, I don't know what I wouldn't know historically whether that was a significant win or not. I think it's a significant win.
It's a landslide win, technically speaking. I think 60 plus is considered a landslide.
Okay, because it was, and then we got Fromeyer which we're having on later this week, and we'll talk to him about some of his things. So I'm excited. I'm interested. I've actually had an incident with Mr. Nystrom. Anyway, not important.
Sure.
But I'm excited by that fact. 34, getting a jump on essentially a handpicked successor that wasn't you, and
everybody backed him and nobody backed me.
Right.
And I decided to go to the people. I knocked on 10,000 doors because I wanted to talk to guys like you and everybody else and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm not just some political jockey. I'm a real person. I'm a businessman. Excellent. I'm a veteran.
And so so the inspiration's in place. You decide you want to do this, and so more from like the nuts and bolts aspect. What is the process?
So you'll appreciate this part of the story then, because I'm in the airport catching a flight to Spain. My wife and I are going on vacation. Hugh has already picked his successor. Hasn't announced yet that he's stepping down. So my campaign manager calls me, and I wasn't planning on running, not for another 4 years until Hugh was going to not run anymore.
Right.
So he calls me, goes, Hugh just announced that he's not running again. Do you want to run? I was like, yeah, we've talked about it, but I wasn't planning on running for another 4 years, but yeah, I want to run. And he's like, all right, I'll get everything ready. I'll see you in 2 weeks when you get back. So by the time I get back I can't campaign until you pull, you have to get signatures. And I can't technically start campaigning until I pull that card to get the signatures on. So my campaign manager is getting everything ready for us to do that. But we are now, Scott probably knew at least a month, if not 2 months ahead of time. And then we lost 2 weeks. So by the time I get back, I have to get signatures, file, and then start campaigning fully.
Right.
So, excuse me, let me get some water in here.
You're good. So basically, what you're telling me is Scott's the guy that does all the legwork side of it.
No. Scott Broyles, my competitor.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because Hugh Nystrom said, I'm back. He fully supported Scott Broyles and backed him. And I'm sure Scott and them knew ahead of time because Scott's been going to all the commission meetings this whole entire time and getting ready for it.
Yeah, the story I read was very much that like Scott was gonna run against Nystrom at some point.
Yes, they agreed that one would run this time and the other one would back the other one for next time. So, which is fine. Like they have every right to do all that. It's just, I was left, like we'd had a very, very late start to our campaign.
Right.
So my campaign manager is Eric Wider, great guy. And he's running, like you had Gina Oster on the other day. Yeah. He's running Gina Oster's campaign as well, and Lafferty and Elaine.
So it's like, is this a yellow page listing? You get in the phone book and be like campaign managers?
No.
Like, how do you find these
people? It's a little bit harder. I mean, once you're in the political circle, I know nothing about politics coming into this really. Like I'm a businessman, I'm a CEO. So once I got to peek behind the curtain and see how all of it works, everybody understands and knows everybody kind of thing. So I was definitely the outsider in this sense. And so we just got a really late start. So Eric and my strategy was we're just going to go to the people and talk to the people.
Right.
And we're going to let the people decide.
Right.
So we knocked on every registered Republican's door that has voted within the last 4 cycles.
Right.
So which ended up being, we did 10,000, a little over 10,000 doors in total.
Nice.
So once you pull the card, you get the signatures, you then file, then you're allowed to like campaign at that point.
But so the nuts and bolts parts is essentially you just left that up that you made the decision that this was something you wanted to do.
Correct.
And then through whatever means you found somebody that's already behind the curtain.
Correct.
And they take care of all the proper filings and paperwork and bring you all the information you need as far as stuff like that. Because that's what I've joked the idea. I don't know if I plan to or not. I don't have a this is as good as I am at public speaking when I don't actually see the audience.
Sure.
So I don't know that it's something that's really on my plate, but I've always been curious, like how not just the decision to do so, but like what all it entails and whether any of that takes. I don't know. I was just, it's a bureaucracy thing to me, and in my history of it, there's always another form to fill out, and there's always stuff like that. So I'm always curious if there's a mountain of that kind of stuff.
So there's the disclosure. Once you file, there's a disclosure form, and then you have like 2 weeks after you file to pull out. But basically, you have to go and get signatures. Once you get the signatures, you hand in the signatures. There's a bunch of paperwork that that you do fill out to run.
And I didn't get to ask Gina, but when I had Gina on, one of the things I wanted to get to and never got around to was, is there some sort of paperwork agreement, something that goes on within the Knoxville GOP?
No.
Or is it just you get to state that you're a Republican? And
so
you go from there.
You can file as a Republican, and then it's up to the Republican GOP at the county level to vet you.
Right. And
then if they have an issue, they can kick it up to the state level. So on this level,
So you can say you're a Republican, and them say, no, you're not.
True.
Basically.
So, yes, I mean that's exactly. So there's a standard that they have. I don't know it in detail. That this is what defines a Republican. And I went and met with Randy Pace, who's the GOP chair for this area for Knox County, and we had a full conversation of who I am and everything else. So I did help out on some campaigns before this, and I was not well known at all, but some of the politicians did know who I was, and I voted Republican. So there was a little bit of a question, I guess, in some sense, because I didn't have. I've always voted Republican, but I didn't have as many votes as they wanted. You have to have like 4 or 5 in a row, and I was like 1 short or 2 short. But
on on a particular ballot,
you have to vote. Yeah, it's on the primary ballots basically, not the general ballots. You have to vote on those. So because I'm young and I was doing the military, I wasn't at every.
You weren't here to do
It's not easy to be at every election. So especially when you're in Afghanistan. So him and I had a conversation, and they felt very comfortable with me being a true Republican.
Okay.
And my father held Republican office for a decade. He was the head of planning and zoning where I grew up. Right. So I come from a Republican
Connecticut, is that right?
Yeah, Connecticut. Okay. So I came from a Republican background. So
wait, so time out. Does that make you a Patriots fan?
No, I'm a Steelers fan.
Oh, that's almost as bad. The only thing you could do worse is be a Cowboys fan.
My dog
but,
was Bradshaw after Terry Bradshaw, so we are a true Steelers family.
You know what? If there's ever proof of CTE, Terry Bradshaw on TV is definitely
right
high
there?
on that list.
I believe in CT.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I interrupted.
No, you're good. So that's basically the vetting part from the GOP side. So
did you get a pass if you didn't vote for Marsha Blackburn? Like, that should be okay if you didn't vote for her. That should be one of your passes for a Republican you didn't vote for.
There you go.
But the record, but the ballots that they are tracking, I don't. That's
so every time you vote, it's public record.
Right. But so just any election, any primary election is that
You
been.
have to pull. So when you go for a primary election, they'll ask you, "Are you pulling a Republican ballot or a
Right.
Democratic ballot?" You have to pull
the Republican ballot. Okay,
every
so
time.
it's not the content of the ballot; it's that you're voting on the Republican primary.
Exactly.
Okay, that's where I was confused. Okay,
That's one of like three metrics that they judge by.
That's a random
so
criteria.
like for the Gina race, and I don't really want to talk about their race that much because it's not my race.
Right.
But the issue I'm thinking you guys are beating around is Eddie Manis pulled a Democratic ballot this last time around.
Right.
So that's why his his donation history. So that's why his legitimacy was questioned.
Right.
So, but that's
Which
their
I would,
race.
yeah,
That's their race. But
I'm trying to get him on too, and so I've been looking a little bit more into him. I mean, again, the purpose of the show is that me as a constituent have sucked as far as being a very active constituent.
Sure.
One of the things we talk about a lot on the show is taking more active effort in our local politics. You know, just like in the email that started the conversation, it's like we can hear all day about Trump and Biden, and Marsha Blackburn for that matter, and all the
our
different
decisions would affect you the most,
right? And so. That brings me to an actual particular issue that I've heard kind of float around in the news a little bit. Mary Jacobs had mentioned reworking the fire department.
I've heard this rumor a couple of times.
Getting a county level fire department and get rid of rural metro. I'm not sure how I feel about it specifically. I haven't heard anything more than the rumor.
Same.
As far as how the specifics go.
I've heard 4 different scenarios.
Okay, you want to run through them real quick, or you want to?
These are
is it
totally
way out there?
rumor.
It's fine.
I don't know the legitimacy of any of this, and I mean, obviously, it's not legitimate yet because it hasn't come to any vote or any formal suggestion.
And I mean, I'm sure it got pushed back on the to-do list given everything else going on.
Especially with everything going on financially. I mean, financially, we're kind of in a little bit of a mess right now
Right.
on a county and a state and at a federal level. You know, the tax revenue has obviously dropped off significantly, and
that's why they're at my house trying to find me. I got you.
I knew he was going to work it in. That's the car thing.
yeah. So there's a couple different ways to approach it. I believe, and I don't have these facts right, so don't quote me on any of this, but I believe there's more than just rural metro. I believe there's actually 3 different private organizations that operate within the county.
Right. And there's a Carnes Volunteer Fire Department.
Yeah, that one. Rural Metro.
And then Rural Metro.
And then there's one more, I believe.
I know there's another ambulatory service, but I don't know if there's
I'm not sure.
I mean, I guess if you're counting the city fire department as a separate one.
The city's a
inside the-
4th, yeah. So there's the idea of one service for the whole county area instead of having 2 or 3 different services.
Right.
There's the idea of why don't we merge city and county together, so this way we're not having 2 chiefs and 2 administrators and everything else.
And that makes sense to me, especially when you get like I'm sure you have 1,000 times. I know Max has. When you look at the city line map where city ends, because you're in the county right now.
Yes.
By that fence,
couple houses. Yeah.
Not even a couple houses. My back property line is city.
Yeah.
And then there's city that's west of me, and then there's city that's east of me. Like I'm literally in a pocket of county in the middle of city property, and it's like, because I've had issue in the past. I'm not going to go into the bad version of it, but I've had issue where I had I pulled my county permit and I was doing a burn, and one of the neighbors thought my house was on fire, I guess, and a city truck showed up.
Yeah.
And I had to explain to the city fireman that this is a county house. I'm allowed to burn. I have my permit.
Correct.
And he was like, "You sure?" I was like, "Yes, I'm
Yes,
sure
you're
where
sure.
my house is.
Here's
I
my
bought county
permit,
for
yeah.
a purpose."
Yeah.
And so he ended up making a phone call and getting out of there, and I'll leave that story there because I don't want to go down that road. But yeah, that's one of those that I'm curious about, and that's one of those that I'm not sure where I land on. I'd like to see more of the plans on that.
Yeah.
So obviously that's not a front burner issue. What do you think's probably going to be number 1A when you get in the door? Okay, time out real quick.
Go ahead.
August 6th is the election for this
August
one,
6th
correct?
is the election. So early voting starts July 17th through August 1st.
Okay.
So we're only
we're
2-3 weeks away from voting.
Yeah, we're 6 weeks from the actual election date.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah,
sweet.
we're getting. This is definitely crunch time.
And I would and again, doing this podcast has gotten me more involved that I wouldn't have even probably known that it was August 6th.
Sure.
I'd be thinking I'm waiting until November 3rd, and this is going to be another ballot item on that whole.
And a lot of people
presidential
don't even
ballot.
realize there's an election coming up. And this is actually an important election because, like, for the Republicans, we've got 8-9 candidates for Senate, for, federal Senate seat, which is a very big deal. We're going to choose one of our senators that we want to have run for us in November. So it's a very important election coming up. It's just with everything else going on in the news, it's on the back burner right now. It's not. I think in the next 2 weeks to 3 weeks, you're definitely going to see, especially when early voting starts, you're definitely going to see more of it. I'm starting to get a lot more media from even on a small local level.
Yeah.
So but it's an important election. For the question was, what do I see coming down the pipe?
What's something that you think like day one is going to be, here's your desk, here's your stack of paperwork,
Sure.
Here's the first thing we got to figure out
Sure.
at the first set of meetings.
I think this whole entire year, the main thing is going to be budget.
Right.
And I think it's going to be tax revenue and where do we stand on all this. And that's going to be the trickiest part about this year is navigating our finances.
Right.
So as a small business owner, I eat what I kill. Like if I don't make any money, I don't get to eat kind of thing. So in government, it's similar. Like if we don't have the tax revenue, we can't provide certain services.
Right.
So, there's the question of there's all the questions about the virus and is there going to be a second wave and are we going to stay, all these kind of things that come around. So really, I know they're already planning like probably December to review the budget again just to see where we ended up falling.
Right.
Because we actually don't know our numbers until about like 30 to 60 days after we get through the month.
Right.
So like right now in June, I think we're getting April numbers.
Well, I know Max and I are kicking a good chunk into our tax collection for you guys. And so as a business owner, one of the questions we like to ask is,
Sure.
is how much is same thing we asked Gina. It's like the amount of regulatory issues and paperwork issues that we have to deal with on a governmental state is something that we don't particularly care for.
Neither do I.
And I would assume you wouldn't, given the situation, especially with multiple businesers operating. You have to do the same thing 3 times, 4 times, whatever.
The amount of taxes I pay. Yeah.
Right. And if like I don't know, I don't even know how to ask the question. I guess is like, how do we keep a functional level of revenue in the county coffers?
Yeah.
Without making it painfully complicated, or we get the sheriff's department to do a bunch of collection for us through tickets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Neither of which I
You
particularly
don't want to see
like.
those,
Right.
yeah.
And so like, I don't know what it like. Like the first one is the bureaucracy is a problem. I think you agree with that part. But the second one being, what is the solution to making sure we have the services that the county is supposed to provide without overburdening all the businesses in town? Because especially post-virus, I mean, like I said, Max is in the periphery, at least, of the restaurant industry for a long time. We met in a restaurant. I don't see a lot of restaurants coming back hard, at least not the mom and pops. I think you're going to see O'Charlie's is going to stick around, Applebee's will stick around. I mean, I heard, I don't know if it's true, but I heard that the Cheesecake Factory here at the mall is shutting down. And it's like, I don't particularly care that one way or the other for a Cheesecake Factory, but for all intents and purposes, that place was killing it.
Yeah.
And it's not coming back. So as far as like, I foresee that we're going to have a long-term revenue issue for the county.
Correct. And the city, both will have issues.
Right. And but that if the solution is trying to tax more out of business, we're not going to have a lot more businesses coming back either.
About it.
So I guess again the question is, how do we get better at it?
Sure. So I don't think there's a great answer at this point because we have so many unknown factors on what's going forward. But my philosophy in general is right now is not the time to raise taxes on businesses because we're already struggling so much. And the truth about it, we haven't even seen the worst of it. Financially speaking yet, we haven't seen the worst of it.
Right.
Because we get the unemployment runs out in August as of right now, I believe. Mm-hmm. So once that hits, you're going to see more turmoil and upheaval because all those people that were collecting sometimes or a lot of times more than what they were making are all of a sudden not going to have that. So also then are we at the point that we're able to hire those people back?
Right.
And then there's a lot of businesses that were on the edge.
Right.
Those are going to fall first.
Right.
and then there's going to be other businesses that just don't have great operators, and those are going to fall second.
Right.
And then you're going to be left with the ones that are good operators. So,
Right. And I mean, the real question is how to get new, fresh meat, for lack of a better word, on the table.
also the
Well,
people.
for us, like, our businesses are doing well, and we're trying to hire people, and we've had 0 people applying. We're trying to hire a full-time person, a part-time person, and we have nobody wanting a job because everyone
collecting money at
more
home.
money.
Yeah. So there's that struggle. I'm in the same boat. We hired 4 people in the last 30, 40 days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also a struggle for the people that are doing well to keep the good. They try to find good employees at this point. So you also have, like, if you start losing these businesses, you start losing more tax revenue, which then puts more stress on county government and city government. So it's this kind of like an ugly cycle of everything happening at once. And what, I don't know if you guys have been watching the current commission and budget meetings, but there's a fear that we're going to lose at least 10% of the revenue from people that just can't pay their taxes.
Right.
So how do we don't even know what that looks like yet, or how do you even factor that in, and how do you even replace that? And it's not like they're going out of business yet. They just haven't made enough money to pay.
Right.
So the PPP money also basically runs out for everybody that got it. It's basically going to run out June. If you got it back in April, May, that it only covers 2 months.
Yeah, we already we burned through ours before we
burned through ours.
Yeah.
I mean, we lost money. I've been very public about this. We lost about $40,000 during the May and April, April and May. Yeah, because our expenses went through the roof. Everybody was home, so everybody made more trash, and then everybody decided we got nothing else to do, so let's spring clean our house.
Oh yeah, I
did.
did.
Our dumping level went up 60%. And our overtime pay and payroll went up 50%.
Right.
So we ended up losing $40,000, and the PPP only covered $37,500.
Side note: when you do go up in the halls and you do go to his house, don't just refuse service for Max.
Yeah.
He doesn't like his garbage man. We've had this conversation.
Okay. So it's.
What do you mean? I like my garbage men. They're great.
Yeah. I don't know I don't know what the answer is yet to all this. I do think that putting more stress and burden on all these small businesses by taxing them more, and putting more stress and more burden on all people by raising property tax is the wrong idea. And in my personal philosophy, I just don't think it's the right idea. Right now, people need a break more than being taxed out of their houses and their businesses.
So one of the questions is, I mean, again, you're not in there yet, so you may not have access to the information. But as far as county level income, what is the majority of county level income? Is it property tax?
It's sales tax and property tax are the 2 main.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, but as far as
for schools, I think it's like 72 or 78, something like that, cents per dollar goes from the sales tax goes to schools.
Oh, so it's all allocated from which tax it comes from, what it's allowed to be spent on.
We as a people voted back in the 60s or 70s that this is what we wanted out of our sales tax dollar. So it was voted by you and me, and people 50, 60 years ago voted that. I think it's
your wife's parents. Because I think they're the only people in this
conversation
conversation that were actually here when that might happen.
So I want to say I think it's around 72 cents. Maybe it's a little bit more than that, but automatically goes from the county and the city, goes straight towards the schools. So if we have lower tax revenue there, then there's lower tax dollars going to the schools, and then a large sum, almost like 50%, comes from the state, and then there's some that gets put in there from our property tax as well. But for county government running, a lot of it comes from property tax and then and sales tax. So the problem that we have right now is we've had no sales tax.
Right.
So
and then a lot of people are taking furloughs on
so
property tax if they haven't already paid it this year.
Exactly. So if we have a situation where, all right, we didn't have any sales tax for almost 2 months, or we had a very limited amount, and then on top of that, the property tax we would normally get, which is like our foundation, we are having people furlough paying that, or just can't pay it. So then what does that look like? And taxes aren't due still for months. We don't have our taxes due to, I think, was it
July?
They moved it. I think for this upcoming year, it's
the federal one moved to like July 14th or something.
I can't remember the exact day. I should probably know that, but
I did all my taxes normal.
So I've already paid mine, so I don't even think about it. So
then the question is it sitting somewhere in DC just in a box waiting to be shipped back, or
been distributed out? Yeah. So it's it's a really wild situation because we've never seen this before. So do we have to do a campaign in the fall when tax season comes around again and say, hey, if you're one of those people that are able to pay your taxes early, please pay them early so that we can keep government open?
Right.
Is that the situation that we're going to be in? So we just don't know at this point in time because we're still looking at April's numbers and May's numbers. We don't even have, we're not even up to like May, June yet.
Right.
So I think once we get through the summer, in theory, if I win, I'll take office in September.
Stop right there. Stop. You say when I win. That's the way politicians talk. You just go ahead and assume you're winning. You don't say if, you say when, because it puts it in my head that it's not an option. I have to vote for you because I don't want to vote for the loser.
You do have to vote for me.
There
this
you
is
go.
true. Anybody can vote for me at this point too. It's not just Republicans. Democrats are allowed to vote for me too now. So, which is a little bit different mindset from going in the primary to the general.
Well, I mean, yeah, because I mean,
that's why he didn't knock on your door, Seth.
Because he assumes he's already got me.
No, because you're not a registered Republican.
Correct. I am a registered Republican.
Okay. I'm Did you vote in 4 or 3 of the last 4 primaries?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I have to go back. Trying to find, that's one of the things I want to try to get better at personally.
Sure.
But I would like to do and share through the show is when things going on. Like we said, August 6th. Max, did you know that August 6th was the countywide election?
No, usually what I do is when I see like a sign out that says vote here, I'm like, oh shit, I need to vote.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of people do though.
Right, which means you're voting about as informed as my dog, so
But I mean, think about it.
That's why I just vote Republican. you got to trust all those guys, right? They're all honest.
We have about 55,000 people in this district alone.
Yeah.
So figure half those are kids.
Yeah.
And then you have about 25,000 voting adults, give or take, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Half of those are going to be Republicans. Half of those are going to be Democrats.
But
you think so? I think it'd probably be a little bit. I think it'd be like a 70.
Here we're
70-30.
We're actually voting wise. Hugh, I think, was around 57, 58, 59. Yeah. So it's actually, we're becoming much more purple in this area than before.
Good. Then we need a third party that plays that.
I mean, this election is projected around 55, 54 is what the swing is projected at. So
it's gonna be exciting. Then I'm gonna actually make a difference on this one because there's enough.
You'll have some impact.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. I mean, it's the way it should be. I really wish there was more. I really wish I'd done better at it in the past. Who knows? I can't say that it hasn't been that way before. But
I definitely think the reason why we did so well in the primary is because we knocked on 10,000 doors because we went to all those people. Yeah. I think people want to be involved. If you get them involved, it's just a lot of people are so busy, which is no fault of theirs. They're you have kids, you have a job, you have business. You guys are I mean, it's hard to think about that when it's not staring you in the face until you see the sign on the road, the vote here. Yeah, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about how do I put food on the table.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the things I said. It's like AC, one of the co-hosts, he always kind of gives me shit because it's like the information's there. It's like, yeah, but the information's not there on presidential primaries. It's screamed in my face. When it's federal level stuff, it's screaming in your face. You can't not hear it. Where you've got to put forth that effort, and whether that makes me lazy or not, then I'm lazy. Yeah. But it's harder to get that information than it is on the higher levels, which like I said, I would argue that it's not as important to my day to day.
You can ask my wife. I look for the peanut butter in the pantry, unless it's staring me straight in the face on the shelf that's at my eye level. I can't find it. So it's harder. It's harder to think about than people realize sometimes.
Do you have kids?
I do not.
All right, so
hopefully in another year or so we will. We're starting to try.
Good. So that the hard one to do, because you just did it, is when you say something that your mom said to you 1,000 times to one of your children, it really smacks you in the face. It's like, oh God, because that the fridge. My mom always said that in the fridge. Like I'd always be looking for the whatever in the fridge and be like, well, you got to move something to find it.
Yeah.
And then I said that to one of my kids a couple years ago, and I was like, oh my God, I'm old. So,
but if we had informed Republican voters here, Blackburn would have never made it in. Like, I'm an uninformed voter. I do a little bit of research, but like I don't understand how she made the Republican ticket on that. I mean, that's a whole other discussion.
Because she was a mini Trump, and at the time that's what sold tickets.
What's your opinion on the current Senate race? I'm interviewing you now.
I haven't had any of them on the show yet, so he hasn't done any research.
Okay. Yeah. They are coming through nowadays. These last 6 weeks. So if you guys get a chance to go out there and meet them, I mean, they're very meetable at this point.
I'm gonna
go up and shake their hand.
Was it Many Seti, Haggerty?
Mm-hmm. There's another gentleman out of Memphis. I think those are the top 3 right now.
Okay.
And there's like 7 other doctors as well.
But yeah, like I
7 other doctors.
was trying to watch. I watched the Trump rally. It's important to know what he says. I was watching the Trump rally and the intro to it, which is interesting from YouTube's perspective. The first time I loaded it up through YouTube, it was a Biden ad.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's pretty ballsy. And then the second time I loaded up, it was a Manny Seti ad. And so it's like, okay. I think it's Seti.
Seth, I think it's Seth.
I mean, I'm Seth, so it's
I haven't met
it's
him
my name
yet,
with an
so
I on
I
the back.
don't know. I've met Haggerty now 2 or 3 times, and I've not met Manny yet. And then the guy out of Memphis, I haven't met him yet either. So I'm supposed to meet Manny in 3 or 4 weeks. I think he's supposed to come through town.
So presumably there's, I mean, what I'm hearing basically is that you'll have, as a commissioner, you would have a little bit of involvement with him as part of the job, or just as part of the part of the behind the curtain you were referencing earlier.
It's part of like, yeah, it's weird. Like, I've never been into politics. I'm not a big Fox News watcher or anything like that. I'm just, a business guy. Basically, it's what I enjoy. That's what I really like. And when I realized there wasn't a single businessman on commission, I was like, that's kind of weird. You're basically a $1 billion company operating.
Right.
The CEO is the mayor, and then his chief staff personnels are the
different VPs
branch,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, are the commissioners, and to not have a commissioner on there with business experience just seems off to me.
Stupid.
Stupid. Yeah, I was gonna say stupid. Yeah, we can go with stupid. But I'm trying to change that. But yeah, the federal guys are on the federal level. I've met Tim Burchett a couple times. I've had conversations with him.
He lives out here.
He lives around the corner from
here.
you. Actually, he's not far from here. So
I see his little black, whatever that little black European car.
I talked to the guys at the state level. I'll talk to their staff. You really can't get to them as much, but I'll talk to their staff. I try to. I feel like I'm a nice guy. I try to be friendly and talk to everybody, and this way, you can reach out. There is an issue. Like, I've talked to Zachary a bunch of times because he's my representative from my district. So, like, one of the issues we have here in the 4th is flooding. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And Bluegrass Lake has flooded the last 2 winters and covered up the road to the degree that we can't get buses and ambulance and cop cars and stuff like that.
Speaking for a friend who lives right there, who was essentially trapped in her home.
Yeah.
That neighborhood had a little bit too much fun with the fact that they went out there and they basically did a little block party. They had their little beachfront block party.
They had a campfire in the middle of Kingston Pike, which I thought was funny, but you have to be safe.
Make the best,
kids,
make the best of it. They had a good time.
But one of the big things, so the commission's already looked at this. We put $500,000 towards it and did a flood study, and basically the flood study is saying that we need a pump station out there.
So wait, the study cost $500,000?
They already did the study. I'm not sure how much that cost, but they're
allocating $500,000 for this pump station.
Yeah, $500,000 for this pump. So
I was like, I do water flow. I do water flow studies in my spare time for $500,000 a pop.
Yeah. So it's the $1.5 million is the pump station. So Zachary and I talked to TDOT, and they said that they would be on board for $500,000 to help. Okay. Because it is a state road, right. And then part of the lake borders the county, but the other part borders the city. So now we've got to go to the city and ask the city, because the city also owns the property and the easements, the easeways,
right,
to put the piping. So at this point, we just need to get. So it's out of the county's hands and out of the state's hands. We now have to go to the city and say, "Hey, city, please give us the land that you own on the lake and the easement to put the piping, so we can alleviate the flooding for this area." So that's like one of the things I'm working on. But that's an example of, you need to be able to have relationships and talk to all these different people at different levels, because I wouldn't have gone to TDOT if Zachary had those connections on that level. And I can ask different politicians, like, "Hey, can you please get me access to American Cannon or whoever, so we can get the money and the land allocated, so we can save people's houses and businesses and open up a state highway," basically.
Right. So that's it. Yeah.
Why don't you just raise taxes on those people that need that? Because I live in Halls. I don't need a pump station.
Yeah, that's not my philosophy, but certain people have that philosophy and have been vocal about that philosophy. I disagree with it, though.
No, I do too.
I know you're being joking.
You've been to my house, so you have used that road, so you don't get to play that argument. But that being said, my sister who lives in Colorado has been to my house, and she has used that road. So, I mean, hell, I would, just to throw on the pile, I would think you could talk to Blount County a little bit about access to, because that's when I go down to the airport or anyway that direction, I go straight through there, and so.
Yeah.
It benefits them to have that thing open.
It's unfortunately it's all ownership. And even on the government level, like the county literally does not own the land to build the pump station. The city owns the land. Regardless that the county uses it or the state uses it or whatever, the city actually owns the easement. So because the city owns the easement, they have the right to tell us to go pound sand.
But so even though the easement is on a state road, state owns the road?
Well, I think technically Pellissippi is under city control.
Right.
But North Shore is under state control.
Right.
But then the city owns all that commercial strip there that borders the lake. And then outside of that, on the other side of the lake is the county.
Right.
So actually all three entities touch the lake that floods. So that's why we're trying to go to all three levels.
It's too bad Pellissippi isn't technically an interstate and falls under the federal system.
Right?
Let's throw
Because
four
that
on
would be
there.
T-Dot and that'd be easy.
Right.
But
Let's just make it more fun.
Yeah. So, the T-Dot part is, yeah.
Just add more people to the pile.
Yeah. So it's, I was really angry as a citizen that lives over there. Like, hey, when that lake floods, it doesn't just flood that area. Everything upstream from that floods as well. So we had all this flooding and all these houses.
Because I use that shopping center. That's my shopping center when I go shopping.
There's flooding over here. I've got a buddy that lives in a house literally a minute across the street from North Shore over here where you live. And he had flooding in his backyard because the streams and everything were swelling so much that they couldn't drain out.
Right.
So it affects, and this is a mile, 2 miles easily up the road from where that is. So it's an issue. And like once I figured out, now peeking behind the curtain again, like all the bureaucracy that goes in, like commission recognized the issue, brought the issue to attention, said, all right, here's money in a flood study to fix the issue. But then we find out, all right, the way to fix the issue, we actually need to go to the city and to the state to get the rest of the money and actually get the problem solved. So like, if I could have a magic wand on commission and have it done, they already said, yeah, done. But now you have to go and play ball with, the county is basically Republican and the city is basically Democrat. So now we have to go to the Democrats and say, hey, please save all of our houses and our businesses from flooding by giving us the land and some money to build a pump station so we can fix all this.
Well, I'll go back to that. Knox County Schools should have a surplus going into this new school year, in my opinion, with school being shut down, with all the sportsmanship. I officiate high school football, and then I stopped doing that and was just did wrestling. I did wrestling, high school wrestling for it.
Right. There's a big question of where all the normal operating money went for the schools when they shut down for the last quarter of the year.
So I'll be the first one to be critical on the schools on their financial management. The thing is with the schools is because so much of their dollar comes from sales tax,
they haven't been loaded up.
So
with the funding.
Even like we had this conversation the other day, like their budget was, let's say 500 million for round numbers sake. I was bigger than that, but let's say it's 500 million. So their budget is what's projected,
to be collected,
not
through
what
the tax,
actually happened.
Right.
So because 2 months of the school year, the money fell off completely from what they would normally be bringing in. Just like the sheriff the other night said, "Oh, I have a $3 million surplus." Well, not really. You have a $3 million surplus in the sense that your budget was planned for $3, but we never collected that much money because it never came in.
Right.
So that's where there actually isn't a surplus. We actually have the opposite direction because we didn't have the sales tax revenue coming in. But like
Well, I'm just talking like Thompson Bowling. I'm sure that UT doesn't donate that to. So all of the high schools,
but the point
pay Thompson Bowling.
The point being that the money that the schools had set aside to rent Thompson for graduations, for their general maintenance and stuff like that. You're correct that they didn't spend it, but the money that they would have had to spend on that never came in through the tax system.
Yeah.
So they were planning on spending money that they're
playing
air quotes knew they were making, and they didn't make that money because
it's typical government. We're not going based off of what we have. We're going based off of what we think we're going to have.
Right.
So just like if me running my business, it's like, all right, I should have had enough money to buy another truck this year. it's in the budget to buy another truck this year. But guess what? That money never came in because of April and May. So I will not be able to buy another truck this year. So, but I was talking to Shoemaker the other day.
But the difference with your business is you just don't go buy a truck.
Exactly. I just don't go buy a truck. Yeah.
Anyway.
Exactly. Because like I said before, I eat what I kill, and I don't. If I don't have the money, I don't spend the money. I'm a fiscally responsible person. I mean, the thing is, the high schools have now held all their own graduations, which collectively cost more money than holding it in Thompson Bowling.
Right.
How is that possible?
Because Thompson Bowling is just one overhead cost, and you can pack 10 graduations in one day. One at 10 a.m., one at 12 p.m., one at 2, one at 4, one at 7. You just rent the arena for the day, all overhead cost, one, bam, wham, done. Now we're renting stages and PA systems for every single high school across the county and holding them at all different events. We have to hire security. We have to hire the EMTs, all this stuff. So instead of paying just for one set of security, one set one set of security, one set of EMTs, one PA system, one stage, we're now renting, was it
16,
something like that.
Well, Max is going to tell you should get your money back because they didn't put on a very good show at his daughter's graduation.
I'll send you the film for my daughter's graduation.
Yeah.
I could have funded that.
Yeah. So, but I mean,
I have no problem funding it.
Yeah. And also, like, the money just didn't come in at the same time.
Right. That's a clarification on how it happens versus how. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense when you put it that way.
Everybody's looking at like, hey, we didn't have any school. We should have all this extra money, right? We didn't spend it on sports. We didn't spend it on any of this stuff. But it's actually the money didn't come in either.
Right.
We didn't do the double-edged sword.
Right. The school system, air quotes, didn't do the sales to pay for their
exactly. We didn't do the sales. We the people. Yeah.
I know what we spend on sports, high school sports. I know what they paid me, and they didn't. That's all. I don't know. I would say that outweighs what we didn't collect.
Yeah, believe me, I don't think the school system is very well run financially. I think we can do a better job.
Well, just like a lot of government issues, it's more run by lawyers now than it is by people trying to do the work.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'd heard a rumor that Bob was going to run for mayor or something. He was going to run for Thomas. Superintendent. I heard a rumor about it. I don't know, but I know that when he comes back up, I don't want him back at the schools. I don't like.
They just voted on him on Friday, didn't they? 7-2
on what
to give him a year extension on his contract.
I don't like that. Who do I get to yell? I get to yell at you about that.
No,
right?
I didn't vote for that. It's the school board.
Well, I'll have to. That's next on my list. Then is get some school board people in here because I understand that it's an unprecedented situation and that this virus thing and the shutdown and all the craziness that went on with it was unprecedented. But the lack of response and then followed by a really half-assed response was so frustrating to me as a parent. And we've had this conversation 1,000 times on the show. And it's just, all right, I get it. We're freaking out. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Shut it down. And let's collect our thoughts. But my perception of it, at least, is let's collect our thoughts, and then we'll hand parents that we'll hand parents that have the time a turd, and then we'll hand parents that don't have the time that same turd, and think that anything's going to get done. And it was just because I will say 1,000 times I was super lucky. Our business Max and I's business is doing very well through this whole process, and that I was working the whole time through it. Like literally the fact that I felt jealousy in myself of people that got laid off.
Sure.
I was like, man, I wish I didn't have to work right now. And it's like, that's such a stupid thought process, but it happened. And it's just like everything else going on around it. It's like, well, at least if I was not working right now, I could actually help my kids with their schooling stuff. And I mean, at this point, they're going to be out of school for 6 months, and it's going to be a shit show come August, assuming we go back in. We didn't even talk about that part and how much county commissioner has anything to do with that. Probably not much, but
pretty much 99% of school stuff is all run by the school board for the most part. The part that the commission has control over is we okay the budget every year.
Okay.
So the people.
Well, this next time around, just reduce salary for Thomas and
I wish we can't even do that. We just say like, all right, here's your $500 million. And you do what you think is best with it.
Require him to get a better legal team because the one he has sucks. I don't know what to do. I'm really frustrated with the whole, operating off the fear of being sued because you missed one kid or something like that. It just doesn't seem like the right way. On the level of however, what do we say, about half the population, so 200,000+ kids in this school system, that the fear of missing one shut everything down and then handed crap out on the other side just drives me crazy.
This school area isn't my specialty.
All right, well then I'll shut up about it. All right, well,
I'll say this about schools. I would like to see more trades program and skill job programs within our schools.
I like that.
That's one of my big things is we are an ever-changing society, and we need to have kids that are coming out with some technical training because, like you and I talked about earlier, I don't remember civics class or much of my science classes. Like the things I remember are actually my business classes because I'm a businessman.
Right, because you apply those things in your day-to-day now.
Like, we need to have classes for our high school students that they can apply to the next level, not just,
Right. I wholeheartedly agree with that. You promised me 45. We're at 50.
I actually, if you want to keep going, I did clear another. I forgot to tell you this in the beginning. I did clear some more time if you want to keep going.
You're fine, whatever you want to do.
It's up to you.
I'm good. I mean, Max is the one that's supposed to be working right now. Why aren't you out selling stuff for us, man?
I'm watching Anthony sell stuff right now.
Good. Well, we could have some weird argument about those forces because Anthony's an Army kid, and so I'm the
Air Force, Marine, and Army.
Yeah, and I'm the stupid civvy sitting here like I do anything. So budget's all at the school, all the county commissioners. So one of the things that I get going way back in conversation about which you don't know yet because you haven't been there, but going way back in conversation about the nuts and bolts of getting into the process. And I guess through your relationships and people you've talked to, what do you see as the day-to-day after you win the election? As far as Monday morning you get up and you go downtown, or
no, it's not. It's a full-time job without a full-time schedule. So
can I ask how much you get? Do you know how much you make?
You get I think it's $1,700 before taxes.
A week?
A month.
That's terrible.
Yes. It's awful.
You're not
running
this for money.
You're not running for county government. No. You're not running.
Senator, make that $170 a year.
Yeah, that's a little different.
Yeah, I should have brought it up. That's one of his pet peeves. He doesn't like how much those guys make.
So this is very much in all purposes a volunteer job. You're not doing this to get rich at all. At least I'm not, for sure.
Yet,
no.
Let's be fair and honest. Yet,
it's not an internship for senatorship.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think
is that on the pool? Is this something that if you feel like you're doing something that you're going to move up in it, or
go federal level, or no?
Just to move up. Period. Just to go. Maybe go to get maybe a different title in mayor in the county, or get into at least state level government.
I'll say I love Knoxville. I love living in Knoxville. I would never want to go to Nashville or to DC.
Well, as Gina described it, at least for her state rep seat, she's there for a couple months, and when she is there for a couple months, she's only there Monday through Thursday.
I also run 3 companies.
That's fine.
I'm a CEO, so but I can't just leave. I can't abandon my companies.
You need to hire better people then.
I have great staff. No. I love my guys. I love my guys.
Because the best thing that Max and I did was fire ourselves, and then we can't hire anybody right now, and so Max had to go back to work actually in the shop because we're terrible people in the store.
I think my wife says it best. Commission is very good for me and my mentality and my level of commitment at this stage. So I get up at 4 a.m. and I work till 10 o'clock at night. I like being busy. Commission will take 20 hours a week at minimum,
right?
Because you have to meet with a lot of people and hear all the issues that are coming up and meet with all the different heads of different departments, and you need to make sure you're moving the ball and getting things done. Then the commission meeting alone last Monday was almost 5 hours.
Right.
So some of these commission meetings are marathons. And I got this week alone, we have Monday night and Wednesday night for different commission meetings. So you don't get paid a lot. No, you're not doing this to get paid though. You're doing it because you love where you live. In theory, you would hope at least people are running because they love where they live. They want to do a good job and have their philosophical views, projected forward that people, agree with.
Right.
But for me, I definitely, nothing federal, nothing at the state level. The commission.
Is that because you already work for the federal government? It's a shit show.
I've already been. Yes, exactly. I've already been a federal employee. It was not great at all. So mayor would be the only thing that I would entertain.
You're not going to beat the wrestler. Come on now.
What? No, I wouldn't run against him or anything like that. That's that would be the only thing that I could do.
He will body slam you into next Thursday.
I would never run against him.
I've tried.
Glenn and I get along really well. Him and I actually have conversations every week together, so I would never run against him.
Well, when you see him, tell him I've been trying to get a hold of his. I've reached out to his office a couple times to try to get an interview. He's not as high on my list because he's not active as far as campaign wise right now. I'd love to talk to him, but. As far as
he's a good guy,
I've met him personally a couple times. He's come out to the schools. That's one of the things I like.
Open to conversation. He's not afraid to be challenged either. And philosophically, I think him and I think similar on a lot of different things. But yeah, I'm a supporter of Glenn. I think he's doing a good job. So I really don't. I gotta get elected first. I mean, we still got August 6th. So
right.
Once we get past that,
hey, we've got tens of listeners that are going to vote for you now. So, so we'll see if we can do our part. At least give people a more educated option, and that's kind of the goal here. And podcast format's a little weird for it because it's worldwide. You can listen. Man. I do too, but as far as trying to get anything, it's hard to do anything local podcast wise because it's like. Okay, so like on a business conversation, it's like, hey, I got this cool podcast. We got X number of listeners.
Yeah.
Every episode we put out there this many. You want to advertise with us?
Yeah.
And you're going to go, well, how many listeners you got? And we're going to say whatever. And then you're going to say, well, how many of them would be customers of mine? It's like, well, 7 of the 10,000 because it's worldwide, And so just doing a podcast in general that is more locally focused is a little bit weird because I was looking at the stats here. We have a listener in Bolivia. Thank you for listening in Bolivia. I don't know why you're listening to us. Maybe we're the butt of some joke. Yeah, you like stupid Americans. Look at them go. And then we got an Irish guy apparently that's been listening to us too. And it's just it's cool. It's great. But it's weird. It's like because what does a person in Bolivia care who Kyle Ward is?
Yeah.
Unless I don't know. Unless they maybe have family here. It'd be. That part is weird in the podcast sense, is trying to do a more locally focused one for that reason.
We have 500,000 people here, so you'd be surprised. I'm a subscriber to the Compass.
You were in the Scripps Network, right?
I was part of the Scripps Network at one point in time. Yeah, I worked for EW Scripps, did sales.
Right.
Was on the radio randomly just to help out with different topics kind of things, but I wasn't like a DJ or anything like that. Right. Just primarily sales stuff.
So that didn't, because of podcasts, they're probably a little down on where they used to be.
Yeah. I would definitely
the streaming
so.
and podcasts and stuff.
I would definitely think so. Yeah. It's the podcasting is the new medium you can listen to. And I love podcasts. That's why I was when you asked me, I was like, for sure. That's a good time.
Well, obviously you didn't listen to any of our shows, so you probably want
to never mind.
I did listen. I listened to the Gino Oster, and I listened to my wife, and I listened to, what was the other one this morning? Listened to one this morning for just to kind of get a feel for how you guys' interview style was.
So. Well, in fairness, Gino was my first ever actual media style interview I've ever done. And then the only other interview I think we have on file currently is a buddy. He's our lawyer friend that we were talking about the Supreme Court stuff.
This morning.
Yeah. He's a fun dude. He is our corporate attorney for our business. But he always blames. Well, he blames me for my wife talking his wife into getting back into law because he had stepped out. And so it's my fault that he's busy making a ton of money doing his job, and I don't understand why I'm the bad guy in it. And so we have a fun relationship in that sense. But I don't know. Max, you got some questions? I'm running dry.
You want me to answer for you?
Say again.
Do you have any questions you want me to answer for you?
Just go ahead and tell the boat story and get it over with.
I got a letter from the county that said I was in violation. I had 10 days to clean up my lot because I had 2 RVs on my property in the Knox County International Property Code. I don't live in a HOA.
Knox County International? That's a thing?
It does. It said International Property Code or something. And that I have 2 RVs and I'm only allowed to have 1 RV. The neighbor next to me, he had 2 old cars. He had an old Impala in the back corner of his property and another car, and you're only allowed to have 1 not running. They cited me from having more than 1 car not running, but all my vehicles are tagged. But I have a 61 Willie, and my wife's got a very unique Subaru Sandbar, and I guess they think that none of this stuff runs, but it all runs. It all is tagged. They said we have a building being delivered hopefully this week, and I had a bunch of racks for this storage building that I got at the Easttown auction. So it's sitting right next to where that building's going, and they said I'm not allowed to store metal shelving outside my house. And I'm like, I have 2.25 acres. This is my property. I should be able to do whatever I want with it. But they said if I didn't clean it up in 10 days, they were going to fine me $1,500.
Did you talk to your commissioner about that?
That's what Gina said to him too.
I called the property lady, and she was like, "Yeah, that's the law." And I was like, "So if I have a pontoon boat and a fishing boat on my property, that's breaking Knox County law?"
Yeah,
that's how it's written.
I found that one interesting too.
That doesn't sound right to me.
But yeah, it's too. Yeah, and then my fire issues. I mean, it's like I got a county for a reason. I got fire. I want to burn stuff, and I get my burn permits. And I had a big issue with Rural Metro because they came out and tried to. I don't pay for their service. I don't see the need. I moved the county to not pay certain taxes, and fire coverage is one of the taxes that I don't have since I'm in the county.
Yeah.
I don't. If it's truly a private fire department, I don't want to pay for their services, so I don't pay for their services. And so I had a fire. Somebody came out, and then a month later they dropped a $1,500 bill on me.
What?
Yeah. And so Nystrom, I had a very, like, it's got to be weird, and this is something to look forward to. People like me,
I mean, this is what you're going to deal with as a commissioner.
I called him out of the blue. I was like, "Hey man, blah," and I just told this whole story, and I was super angry. I called my lawyer first because I was like, I'm gonna sue somebody here. This is so ridiculous that I've got a $1,500 bill for them coming out and saying, "Okay, you're cool. You have a permit."
Yeah.
And so I had to fight with them, and then and this is why that fire department question came up. Importantly for me is that big fight going back. Nystrom gets a hold of whoever at Rural Metro. Rural Metro calls me. We have this conversation about it. And it's like, well, if it happens again, we're not going to excuse it. They ended up excusing it, but if it happens again, we're not. And it's like, so you're telling me that if I get my burn permit and I burned,
forcing you to pay,
right? I mean, it's extortion for lack of a better word. Because I mean, it started off with them going, well, if you don't want to pay the $1,500, you can become a member. And we'll just backdate it to before the event, so you only have to pay $300. Right, and
dues,
it's like that's extortion, and I understand it's a gray area thing.
It sounds like Hugh did his job and got you in contact with you.
Yeah, he did, and I was very I felt kind of bad for him because I mean I literally, it was like 8:30 one night. Yeah. I got a hold of him, and it was just like I probably ranted at him for a solid hour about how ridiculous thing was. I was upset. But it's the like I understand it's a gray area thing. We need to have that service available.
Yes.
And me, generally, I would like to see more things pushed private, but I don't know what the correct way to do this is because I don't feel like this one is, especially like if there should be a circumstance behind the reasoning for it. I understand those trucks are important. They have better things to do than run by my house.
This is that gray area.
Yeah, it is.
And that's why the fire conversations coming up is.
I'm not the only one.
Well, no, but like, so what's because like your neighbor has it, but you don't, kind of thing.
Right.
And so like, you're not paying them to come out here but they have to come out here because they're paying for it. So they have to come out here to make sure this fire doesn't spread from your property to their property.
Right.
But then they want to charge. Yeah. It's like it's kind of, because of the way it is, it's really weird. Right. So that's why I think the conversation is coming up is like, do we just say, all right, everybody's getting fire, there's going to be $20 tax on everybody, and now everybody has fire.
Right.
But then there's a lot of people that are like, well, no, I think it should be privatized, and you should choose if you want fire or not. So, I mean, because, I've heard many people say this, well, you're going to get more money if the house burns all the way down anyways. So why don't you just burn it all to the ground?
That was
but then you get the safety of life and everything else. So there's going to be a lot of arguments, and I'm actually looking forward to, like, if this topic does come up, to hear all the details and all the facts and how everything is. I don't think you should be extorted, though, especially because if you have a burn permit, the whole point of the burn permit is to notify the powers that be that hey, I'm gonna do this guy is burning on his property.
And I would think one step would be, and this is something here I'm gonna throw one on for your thought process when it comes up, is because part of the burn permit is you have to call in the morning and be like, is this a day that I'm allowed to?
Yeah.
But there's nothing about me saying that I am doing it. It's just it's literally a recorded message that says you can burn today.
Yeah.
Not whoever you are. It's just a recorded message. You call the line and it says yay or nay on a burn day.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, maybe just a small little kitchen where I at least put in a proximity to where I am so that Rural Metro could be made aware of that. and know ahead of time that there are people that have their burn permits that are burning today or something like that.
Common sense would be like, this guy pulled a burn permit.
Right.
Hey,
right. But we're talking about government, so common sense doesn't necessarily apply.
It should be easy. It's like, could you please email us when you're going to be burning?
That being
this
said,
way we can put it on our list.
That being said, when I talked to the lady from Rural Metro about next time, I was like, do you want me to call? I'll call the local station. Yeah. When I do it, I'll call county, and I'll know that it's a burn day for county, and then I will call you guys and say, hey, I am burning today.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, if we get dispatch from 911, we're coming out, and you're going to get a bill.
Yeah.
And it's like, I totally respect the gray area in this conversation, but it's just there needs to. I mean, if it's a private company, that's extortion. But it's not really a private company because they're not fighting against anybody else. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is.
And
I just know that this
conversation of, do we make it a government service like the police, like the sheriff's department is? Do we now have a county-wide fire department that covers? Doesn't matter. You pay your taxes. It's in your taxes.
Right.
So that is going to be the topic. Like, what would you like as a constituent of mine? You know, right? Because that's the way you want me to think, right?
Yeah.
So So as a future constituent of mine, what is your thought process? Should we? I'm interviewing you now again. Should we?
Right. No, that's good. I like it. I don't. And again, I'm not sure.
Because you have a libertarian philosophy, that you apply to most of your life, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
So, as a libertarian thinker,
I mean, it's the question to be the big question to be is what the contract that Rural Metro has with the county as far as they're required to respond. That's what, as I understood it, is that if county dispatch, which that is a government entity, gets a call from one of my neighbors that says there's a lot of smoke, their contract requires them to respond. And so again, that brings up the weird scenario where it's like, well,
they had to spend money to send the guys out here, so who's then paying for that?
And then a selfish gut reaction is like, well, then you need to go who's calling, because it was multiple times at this kind of before. There was multiple issues going into this. If it's the same person calling, I don't know. Is there some sort of education that needs to be put out to other county people that don't know this?
Who does the financial responsibility fall on to?
And it's like I'm properly doing what I'm properly doing, and I'm not going to pay it. And you could sue me for it. I would actually we'd come out of bankruptcy. They weren't getting money out of me even if they won, so it didn't really matter. But it was the principle of the situation, and so honestly it's something I struggle with. Is trying to I like the idea of private services like a private fire department. If we're going to have private fire departments, though, I'd like to see more than one. I don't like that I have one option, because that gives them the ability to extort. If at least it's, I don't know how to do it on the logistics side as far as who county calls and when they call, but
then if you privatize, is there enough demand to warrant 2 fire stations as well?
Right.
So that's all like
it's
never
balance.
Like none of this, like, people always want to make this stuff simple, and like you and I this is a great conversation. This is what government officials should be doing, having healthy conversations about this, because it's not as black and white as we would like it to be, right? Like it's like, well, hey, maybe if we just because right now there's a limited amount of people actually sign up for Rural Metro. It's $600 a year, whatever it is,
right.
300 or 600 depending, I think, the size of your house or something like that. And then, all right, well, if we just say we're going to put in your taxes and everybody's going to pay it, all right, now it's only $20.
Right.
So do we do that? But like, as somebody that doesn't believe in high taxation, I believe in small government and low taxes. I believe in choice and freedom. Like, I personally would rather pick my private fire station than be taxed at $20. But is that also, being elected officials, what's the best decision for your constituents as well? Right. What do your constituents want?
Right. Well, maybe the other question too is how does Rural Metro spend that money, in the sense that if I'm, the kind of the joke that Max made earlier, he's on the other side of town.
Yeah.
And he's paying the same Rural Metro as I am. And it's like, so my $300, $500 a year or whatever, is that going into my firehouse? It's right here.
Also, his liability is probably lower because he's on 2 acres, as he stated before, 2.5 acres.
Right.
So if his house burns down,
his neighbor's house ain't going to get touched.
But if your house burns down, your house, you're 50 feet, not even.
Right.
So I mean, the liability of your house is much higher than the liability of his house.
Right.
So are your taxes supposed to be the same as his taxes? And this is just one more layer into the argument that's going to probably play out in public forum of what do we do as public officials? Do we vote to, hey, let's do $20 tax? I'm just picking $20 as a number, but do we just do $20 tax across the board because it's or do we keep it as $300, $500
per square footage yardage or something? There's plenty of options on how to apply that. I get that.
Yeah.
And again, it's something that I've put a lot of thought into, and I cannot come up with what I would say was a satisfactory answer because I understand that there is need if my house is literally on fire, and that if they don't come out because I'm not a member or I refuse their service or whatever, that it is not impossible for mine to jump to the next.
Yeah.
But $1,500 charge for them to drive from wherever. How close is the fire station?
Like a quarter mile.
Yeah, it's not far at all from his house.
Right.
I see them all the time take their fire truck to go get
the firehouse subs.
Yeah.
Does that cost them $1,500 every time they want to go have lunch?
Right.
In their fire truck?
Right.
No.
Right. But again, I get it in the sense though that that's the assumption that the truck's not doing anything else right now either. They could be out on and I don't know how they prioritize it if they get a call for whether it's a first responder call from an accident versus versus a call on a fire situation, if they prioritize those things. And so, I mean, I get it in the sense that it needs to be priced in a way that you don't want them to have to use it. You don't want them to come out, but
And then the next layer of this conversation: who's in charge? Do we merge city and county together? Is there just one big city system or big county system?
Right.
Like who then holds responsibility for it?
Right. One of the things I feel like for the county conversation is like the dealing with the city is there needs to be, to me, a serious conversation of what we are trying to do as a city. Are we trying to continue to grow? Are we trying to be a more metropolitan? Are we trying to be a Chattanooga, Nashville type of city? Or are we trying to stay more small town as a city? Or is that something that we as a community want?
Yeah.
Because I think to me, and with no expertise in this at all, I think we're, especially joking about the different lines that the city-county line is, it's like we're pretty close to a size of city that we could just be one whole.
The metro,
right? So instead of having,
we're in a very unique position as a county because we have a county government and a city government, where Nashville is a metro government,
right? And I think that's a conversation to be had, and it's a goals conversation because I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah.
But I think we're close because there's definitely parts of the county that are not even that are Johnson City far away. But
it comes back down to politics though, because the city will never. So if we want to become a metro government, the only thing the city has to do is turn in their charter and say we're dissolving our city,
right?
And we're just going to become part of the county. But the thing is, it will not happen.
Voluntarily?
Because the Democrats control the city. They don't want to give up control.
Right.
So even though, would it fiscally be better that we just have one government operating the whole so this way we don't have two roads departments and we don't have two police forces, we just have one.
Right.
Would it be better for the constituents? Yes. Would it
but
happen?
we don't want to annex the county into the city and then pay more taxes.
And then I would jump
that's
out.
the thing. How does that all look at the same time?
And I would jump on the other side to say it may not be better for all constituents either.
No, it might not be
for sure. I mean,
because multiple arguments.
Right, you get way out there and on Max's side of town, you get a little bit further before you hit county line, and it's real rural.
Yeah,
in certain parts, and I could see as a very rural Knox County resident that I don't want to do. I don't want to have to.
You don't want to have a metro.
I want to pretend like I'm not part of Knoxville City at all. And so I could see it both ways for sure. But I think whether we as a constituency like it or not, it's happening. I mean, when we
so the way it will happen is if the city eventually goes bankrupt, the county would absorb it at that point in time. That's the only way that they're going to merge into a metro, because as you said, the county folk that are all Republican don't want anything to do with the city, and the city folk that are all Democrats don't want to deal with the county.
I think is that something that we can get? Is there some sort of process to make that a ballot item that we could have that?
The city will never let you do it.
What do you mean never let me do it? They work for, they don't work for me because I'm a county resident, but the
city would have to.
Well, yeah, our businesses in the city.
That's true. Our businesses in the city.
Well, the city would have to put it up for a vote, I would assume, to turn in their charter or not to become a metro, or the county and the city would have to decide to merge together.
And this, boys and girls, is why civics class is important.
This is a very big hype.
Right.
This is something that will probably not happen within the next 2 decades.
Well, since you said it, I know it's now a point of contention for me, and I'm gonna have to push for it because I think again, I think it's.
Does it make sense?
I think on the surface it makes sense, and I think
yes.
But then again, I lose my ability to burn stuff, and that's a bummer. But
you don't know that because would you then the simplest way is the city turns in their charter, and you also have a metro because the county takes over.
Right, and then
then you would have all county rules that the county has, and the city rules would all go away.
Right.
But all the taxes now go to the county because the city no longer exists.
Right.
So in theory, you would still be able to have a burn permit and all that stuff.
Right.
There would be no city. There'd just be county, and that's it. But
then that law gets adjusted over time because the more city version of this stuff, then you have people trying to get burn permits there, and you have issues with burning in places they shouldn't burn.
Obviously, this would not be a very easy thing. It would be extremely complicated, and there'd be a lot of things on a lot of levels that would need to be adjusted.
Right.
But in theory, if we're talking about just theory, yes, you could, in theory, create a metro system. The most likely thing I see happening is the city eventually going bankrupt and the county having to take over at that point in time.
So what you're saying is for anybody that's a city resident, vote crappy. Let them screw it up.
The more they screw it up. But this is the thing. You know what they keep doing? They just keep raising taxes so that they don't go bankrupt. So as long as the city keeps raising taxes, they won't go bankrupt until they hit a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
It's all this catch-22 type. This is a fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
I'm serious. The likelihood of this happening isn't within the next 2 decades.
All right,
in my opinion.
Then
just legalize marijuana and then put that money towards fire department.
Well, that is true. It was a couple of years ago. They had that. It was on the ballot. I don't know if it was county or city. I think it was city ballot, even though it was a non-functional. It would have been a non-functional
ordinance by the
ordinance.
state level first, and then they would have to be approved on the county and city level.
Right,
afterwards.
but nonetheless, it was interesting that it was there just because it gives the voice. The voice says, "Hey, we want this."
Yeah,
and then the state would have to decide whether they want to say, "Well, we hear you say you want it, but you can suck it."
Yeah, I think the point was to be like, all right, if it does eventually pass, we already have the laws in place, so we can be quicker to service if that's something that happens.
Yeah,
and you'll see that there's a lot of counties or cities or municipalities, which municipalities in general, that will pass things that aren't
technically legal on a state level,
because once they do pass it, then we can
go forth with it. The mechanisms are in place.
Exactly.
For
so like say gambling, we could have in theory passed a gambling law before the state level gambling law was passed. So now that the state gambling laws were passed and the guidelines have been set, now it's only on an app online. You can only gamble online. But in theory, if we as a county wanted to be proactive, we could have set our own laws. They can only, before.
And it doesn't turn on.
And then they would retroactively be turned on once the law would be passed at the state level. Yeah.
Okay.
So you could, in theory, do that kind of stuff, but it's a lot of it's symbolic.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean,
which is fine. Because that's what people want to do.
Right, and as you've stated from actually listening to our show, which is fantastic.
Yep.
That I always argue as a libertarian, and that's as far as the presidential election goes. That is why I voted for Gary Johnson. That is why I'm voting for Joe Jorgensen. Is not that I think they're going to win. Honestly, I would love to see it happen.
Yeah.
But my opinion is we need a third, fourth, fifth voice in these conversations because this left-right voice has gotten so far left-right that we're losing what the middle actually is anymore. And I think that's you see it every day on the federal level. There is no middle ground anymore. It is my way or the highway, whether it's right way or left way.
Yeah.
It's that's it. And then it's just complete gridlock. Nothing happens. And those of us out here living in it actually have to deal with it, where most of these politicians kind of get to skate above the mess that they're leaving around, which, that's above your level. But we have taken up officially all of your time.
Thank you.
Kyle Ward, everybody, he's running for District 4 County Commissioner. That is my district. That's AC's district. That's most of west, southwest.
Bearden, so it's 37919 and North Shore Corridor. So part of 37922, West Hills. So everything from like the Frisbee Golf Course on up to Sequoia Hills. That whole block there.
And then Todd from Mayor is his opponent. We're having him on later this week. look forward to speaking to him and seeing what his views on some of the same subjects are. So I have to go re-listen to this episode, take notes, so I make sure I don't forget to ask him some of the questions we asked you. He's got, what's the best way to get a hold of you through Facebook?
VoteKyleWard.com.
Okay.
Vote Kyle Ward on Facebook. Vote Kyle Ward at Gmail.
Oh, I friended you personally instead of your following your page. Right. I'll have to fix that.
I don't do social media really, so
I know you suck at it. We had a big mess getting
at social media. I'm not I don't know half the people that I'm friends with on Facebook, or probably 99%.
Well, you're friends with me now,
Awesome.
And so when the Rural Metro comes out here in late August, when you've actually taken your seat, you're going to hear some bickering phone calls from me about that.
I'll be here.
So VoteKyleWard.com, right? So
yes, sir.
Okay.
VoteKyleWard.com
is a good way to learn more about him. If you're following us through Facebook or something like that, you now know that I have the ability to talk to Kyle too. So if you have any questions or anything you'd like to find out more about, I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in trying to get you back maybe late July, early August. I'd like to see I'm sure you'll be super busy then.
I was going to say, crunch time.
Right. Well, hopefully...
since I'm going to win, right? Let's do right after the election.
All right, so mid-August.
Let's have a post-election
Right.
review.
Well, you'll have to come out on Saturday for the official show. We'll have some beers and wine out, and then we'll really start leaning into what we actually want out of you.
Yeah, what you actually want to get out of me, right?
And so,
so Kyle, this is what we really want to see happen in our district.
Now that we and our huge listenership has gotten you this position,
awesome.
Do what you're told.
Thank you.
So, Kyle Ward, really thanks for coming out. Max, any last words before we shut it down?
I'm good.
Thank you,
All
Max.
right. Well,
appreciate it.
Yes.
Cool, guys. Like I said, we'll have Todd in later this week. We'll have our official episode out at the end of the week. I'm actually, for the sake of fairness, going to hold on to this. I'm not going to release it until after we speak to Todd, so that he can't he can't cheat and get information ahead of time, because you asked for you asked for anything to prepare for, and I told you nope, you get nothing, no preparation for this interview. So thank you, Kyle. Thanks for coming out. KyleWard.com, VoteKyleWard.com, everybody, on Facebook, our Facebook page, and have a great day.
All right, see you. Appreciate it.